filming? Hello, Yella. Hello, Mikeys. We haven't sat for a while, so I'd just like to say I'm very happy to be back. People may not understand that as much as they don't see us, it also means we are not seeing each other. And they might miss us, but we also miss each other. So I'm happy to be here, man. Vince, Alzi, the rest of the MidMac team. One of the things that came out was the video that you did speaking about the amount of money you guys have spent doing social media work. I'm not going to ask you to unpack that here because I believe it's part of work you're going to be doing, educating people on how to maximize social media marketing. I'm also learning a bit. It's a really deep conversation we need to have. You almost wish we could have like a seminar of social media content creators and marketing gurus and brands to have an in-depth conversation on how do we move marketing from old school to what we have now. There are so many people watching us, listening to us, and it's how do brands position themselves intelligently to get that right. Bobby Petkoff has become a brand in himself. Yes, he's championing MidMac Motors, but there are so many people that know you that have no interest or can't afford a car. But the question is, how do you still get them to spend money on your face or on your platform or with the attention that you have? So shout out to you guys. I thought you guys were never going to invite me back again. I was like, these guys used me. I was like, oh, we did a social experiment. We invited Pen. Thank you so much. Cheers. We're good to go now. So for the fact that you guys brought me back, man, I'm happy. But I'm just happy to be here and I'm happy to be with the community.
Amazing having you. And you raise a good point. Why is there no marketing convention or creators convention in South Africa? There's so many in the States, and it's
because you haven't created it.
I think it's about time. And if you consider the great equalizer, which is the attention economy, and you look at big brands, I'll look at big brands in our space. I'm not going to name them out, but your franchises, your big South African, whatever brand it is, and the amount of following that they have, 300,000-400,000 followers on Instagram, and the little reach that they get, considering the massive following, just shows you that budget, backing, and name is not enough.
It's not enough.
You have to be really technical in when you post, how you post, what tags you use, what hashtags you use, your copy. It can't be ChatGPT copy. You know, it was for a second, but it's not any longer. And I feel that a convention like this can add value into thousands of creators' lives. Because if your content's good today, if you talk about real issues that people are interested in, and you have a hook in your first 3 or 4 seconds, you can compete with the biggest brands with 1 million followers, which, by the way, 95% fake following, because today you can buy following.
You can buy followers, yeah. A lot of them buy followers, yeah.
I think 95%, 99% of them buy followers, because you can't, for the love of yourself, have 400,000 subscribers and get 6,000 views on your reels consistently. So
something is shady.
Something is shady, and with enough, in the past, you could buy attention because the attention was on TV, radio. That's where the attention was, print media. So you could pay to put your face out there on ETV or whatever the channel is that you were targeting. Today, creativity needs to align with math, so that you can get your message out there, and it's exciting. And what excites me is a small company can take on a Goliath and actually whip their ass on social media. Are you
selling your knowledge? What you guys have accumulated with Vince and Elsie and the rest of the team?
So there is a play. I can unpack the play a little bit.
Sure.
Initially, what the idea is just to help the motor industry. It's been a very, 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 very rough past 2 years in our space. I know some companies have done extremely well, depending on the business model that you operate in.
Okay. The last 2 years is coming out of COVID still.
So
is that the period you're talking about, coming out of COVID?
Interestingly, coming out of COVID for our industry has been very good.
Okay.
that initial, I would say about 18 months out of COVID was brilliant.
Sure.
And there's multiple factors why it was that good. Low interest rates, the banks had
To stimulate spending.
to stimulate spending. The banks' scorecards definitely came down.
Sure.
Where today, realistically, at about 690 ITC score, you can get an approval. By the way, it doesn't cost you money, and I really believe in what we do. That's why I'm not going to punt it your way, but on our website, you can get a credit check that we pay for. So anybody that's watching the show can go to mitmacmotors.co.za and get a free credit check.
Jeez, thank you.
It's free to you. We pay for it. But at about 690, that's where banks start to say, okay, yes, we'll look at your transaction and then discuss interest rates. Where just out of COVID, it was as low as 600, 620. So loans were going out left, right, and center. Now, affordability is calculated at 30% of your gross income. But say, for example, a vehicle that costs you 6,000 Rand a month. Considering we've had 10 interest rate hikes in a row, that 6,000 Rand payment went to 8. Now you're finding people canceling insurance,
Sure.
all sorts of crazy stuff. And then the biggest challenge for us was the buoyancy of the used car market drove prices up because it's supply and demand, right? The supply was very low, the demand was very high. So we as dealerships, including us, were overpaying for cars.
Okay.
So your Hiluxes, your Fortuners, your very popular cars, your Ford Rangers, where it used to retail, just an example, a Hilux, about a 2019, 2020 Hilux used to retail a year ago for around 500,000. The normal market would be a car like that should sell for 529, 539 if it's got a lot of extras, within 10% of retail. We started paying 20% above retail to buy the car on, which means now we have to sell, call it 28, 27. Each dealership has their own profit margins, but sometimes 30% over retail. Combine that with interest rates that went up 10 times in a row. Clients are sitting on cars, have been sitting on cars for the last year that owe them too much. So it's very hard to trade that vehicle in. Now you have a customer that says, my installment was 6, it went to 8. I want a new car, a different car, and get me back into a 6 installment. But the vehicle's overpriced as it comes in back to the market. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just the way that the cards were laid out, simply because interest rates were very low, supply was very low, and demand was high. So that's the reality of our industry over the last 12 to 18 months.
Sure.
So there is a disconnect between the companies that are doing really, really well, that have gone and invested in technology, that have invested in marketing skills, that have opened up Instagram, Facebook pages to create attention for their brand, and the ones that haven't. And unfortunately, majority of the motor space hasn't, because of multiple reasons. I think the main reason is the owners of dealerships today are 50, 60-year-olds plus. So there's a little bit of disconnect, because the tendency is, I'm not good with computers, I'm going to give it to my son that's coming into the business or whatever. But that youngster doesn't understand the complexity of the business yet. So we feel that initially that's where we're going to start. Initially, we can add a lot of value to those companies, so that they understand the importance of having a social presence, because that's the real value. You can take a website like AutoTrader, bottom of the funnel. That's where people start looking when they are ready to buy. And there's also a a max out of how much a dealer can spend. Whatever it is, if you've got 50 cars on the floor, you can have the best package with the most probability of a lead per car, and that's it. You can't spend more than that to get more leads. Everybody spends a lot. So there's no real competitive advantage there outside of your brand. So we're trying to probe the industry to see how we can assist them in creating a brand and creating leads outside of the conventional methods that dealerships are used to. And I think this is potentially a strategy that can become evergreen in multiple industries, not necessarily only in ours. A lot of businesses can benefit from this eventually.
Your idea was to do the work for your business, for your brand, and then now that you feel you've done enough, you're punting it to other car dealerships to say, we can help you in this industry move vehicles.
So we haven't done nearly enough. We feel that if we share the knowledge that we've gained at scale and teach dealerships how to implement the knowledge, because knowledge is a funny thing today. There's a lot of marketing books you can read. Gary Vee's got jab, 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 right hook. When you read a book like that, you're very inspired. You're like, shit, I can do this. And it makes so much sense. And I love Gary Vee and I love what he does. And I'm a huge fan. But I think the real value comes in getting someone to actually show you how to implement the knowledge. What does it look like when you now have to sit down and do the stuff? How does that look? And that's where we feel we can help, because not only are we doing it, we are learning as we're doing it, and we can share the techniques and some of the variations on different platforms that we've learned, starting off at the motor industry space. And who knows?
You're planning to sell this?
Yes. And there's a reason for that. Sorry, I interrupt you. If you give the implementation for free, it will never be implemented. You can give the knowledge for free. So we can tell you on each platform you need to sound slightly different. On Instagram, it's different to Facebook, it's different to TikTok. The techniques are different. We've got some of our videos that do amazing on Instagram and they flop on TikTok.
Yeah.
And then we go and test. Why did that happen? Is it the times? Whatever. If you give the knowledge, it's fine. If you sell the implementation, the person is invested,
sure,
and the person will use it, and then the person can hold us accountable and say, hey, but you said if I do X, Y, Z, this will happen. And then we can go back and see, have you done it? Yes, you have. Then you should get the results. If you don't, there's a glitch somewhere that we need to figure out together, and we can help you do that so that you can reach the result that you desire. If you give it away for free, nobody will use it properly, and there's not going to be an accountability channel back to us. So selling it is definitely, for us at least for now, the only way that we can ensure the person that's invested is going to have success with the product.
I have a lot of things I wanted to discuss today, but I hope you don't mind us going a bit deeper on what you're raising.
No problem.
Is there a chance of potentially pivoting from car dealerships to becoming a multimedia company? Number one. And number two, why even sell implementation and not implement on their behalf? Because even selling it, they won't execute it. You know, the work that you guys are doing, people look at it. It's funny. Look at this video. When you actually really need to do the work, because people don't understand content creation. It is work. It could be something as silly as editing an existing video. Then it's filming, going into the streets, jumping up, getting into a car, doing it again, adding the edit. And you're like, look, you showed us the implementation, but bro, we actually just want to sell cars. Fuck this shit. Just do it for us. Bobby Petkoff becomes the face of South African car dealerships. Today, great special like Hippo, of which Dostane, I don't know if people know the story, but there was an issue. Dostane is an insurance mogul, one of the wealthiest South Africans.
Yes.
Built Stain City, I don't know what phase it's in now. Was friends with the late Tatu Nelson Mandela. Tatu Nelson Mandela wrote a part of The Long Walk to Freedom at his home, which is now the Saxon Boutique Hotel. Beautiful. It was a beautiful home as well. So he's got insurance companies, multiple. And he built a insurance quotation quote, comparison quote platform called Hippo. And at the time, he only listed his insurance companies on it. So it's like, oh, well, I'll go with these ones because they're cheaper, but he still makes money. And at some point, I think he was called out for it and he had to bring in other
competitors,
people. Outside of Hippo, just the idea of, I want a car, I don't know. Let me follow Bobby. Let me see what Bobby's saying. Hey guys, looking for a car. This is what's hot in the industry right now. There's a dealership in Durban. There's a dealership in Cape Town. If you look at the differences and you can do a deep dive, you guys have done the work. These guys are like, we just want to push, like Auto Trader. Guys are like, we just want to sell vehicles. We want people to come here. Hi, how are you doing? What are you looking for? Look, Bobby said you guys have a special. And you're like, cool. His team has been saying this. His team has been crunching the data and they create the ads. This week we're in Hermanus and we're coming to profile and just do it and build a multimedia to a point where you're like, I can't run Mid-Mac anymore because it's a conflict of interest. So we're happy to hand it over and we're just going to build this multi-billion rand company in South Africa, maybe the rest of the world, that is going to innovate around how to move units, whether it is a car, a house, etc. We've done the work. Is there a chance of you guys considering that?
Very good question. And I'm going to answer it slightly from a further away point.
Okay.
I'm going to answer your question. So the internet accelerates the truth. Attention accelerates the truth. Our target is to educate the dealer network that is interested in improving, growing, and trying out new concepts. Our target is not the impatient, I want the results now.
Sure.
Because you'll never get results now that are long lasting. We want to go and teach the hustle muscle to those individual dealers so that we don't give them fish. I don't want to give anyone fish. That's the transformation our company has gone through over the past, I'll say 4 months, 5 months. There's been a lot of movement in the management team, in the sales team. For the longest time, we wanted to give people fish. I said, no. Last year, October, I said, I want to teach you how to fish. That way, every time a dealership sits in front of us at one of our seminars, when they leave, they are not motivated. I'm not a motivational speaker. We can do it. This content creation thing is easy. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. And it's so emotionally not draining. I'm not going to use the word draining, but it's taxing because you invest so much in a little piece of content to the outside world. To us, it's everything.
Sure.
This 30-second video, we've got Elsie who edits, we've got Vince who writes the scripts, who thinks of the ideas, and then you've got this monkey that just in between calls is like, stand here, say this. I'm like, cool, let's go.
Sure.
And then I'm like, I don't even want a piece of content to win for me. I want it to win for the guys that you don't see because I know the passion and the work that it took to create it. And then sometimes our videos don't do well.
Sure.
Like my favorite stuff from a technical point of view, like ours, what the this is so dope. Like she'll spend hours editing a certain thing, and I even miss some of the effects and the details that she brings into the content. But you know, when I ask her about it, then she says, "This is what I've done. This is what I'm this dope," and then it does like average.
Sure.
But through exercising the hustle muscle, we have developed the resiliency to know that if we push through, eventually the stuff goes viral and we get a lot of eyeballs. And that's the target for now, is to get like-minded people, because I know there's plenty out there, to come in and say, okay, you guys have paved the road to this point. How do we take it and help you run it further? How do we take the knowledge? Because the amount of money that we've spent on stuff that didn't work is a lot. But then the little money that we've spent on stuff that works just pays for everything 10x. How do we take what you know and what you've done up to this point and grow on that and give that back to the industry? Rather, and I still, in my mind, I'll never stop selling cars, because that interaction is my high. When we did a delivery for a young girl the other day on a Gemini, first car, and then I ran away because I can see the dad, the mom's not there. It's a difficult story. The dad's there. She's got good grades, so she doesn't have to spend as much money on university because she got a scholarship.
Sure.
So the dad can afford to buy her a nice first car. That emotion to me is my drug. So I high-fived him, gave him a hug, high-fived the girl, and then I ran away because I got teary. Then I just went around the block, and I'm like, man, this feels so good. And I know we're making a difference in that person's life. But that aside, I feel the value will be more in teaching dealerships how to fish rather than to pass them fish, because then you're not growing the industry. Then you have these big, massive companies that are corporate, that have billions of rands of investors that just go top of the shelf, get the best of, come sit here, the best of, and just kill everybody, because that's what they're doing. And the problem is the way that they're doing it is in a way that the average dealer doesn't even know they're getting killed. On SEO, on Google AdWords, on Facebook, on all these platforms, they are getting annihilated and they don't even know. It's like one day waking up and I've got a sore throat and it's stage 6 cancer. You're about to die in 30 minutes. That's what's happening. And we feel that with the knowledge that we've gained, we can at least make them consciously incompetent. So I know that I'm not good in this area. Now I get to make a decision. Do I go and improve, or do I just lay back, sit back and watch my sales decline? I hope that answers your question.
I'm not happy with your answer, but you did answer me.
Okay.
I hope you guys will reconsider.
Maybe, because
there's a time for empowerment, and of course finding like-minded people, and there's a time to just offer, because you can offer the service and price and then be like, look, if you want to do it yourself, we can also teach you, instead of we'll teach you to do it for yourself. So it's just something to consider.
So this will probably be a team discussion. I won't be able to make this decision on my own.
Sure. Something to consider.
Yeah.
There's this I'm trying to not disrespect people, because at some point I might have to sit with them. But for this platform, there's this clown in South Africa called Lesitya Kganyago, who's the governor of the South African Reserve Bank. I call him a clown because he's the face of part of the destruction of this country. You spoke about 10 interest rate hikes back to back, and you have to ask yourself who's driving these things. He's obviously the face of a monetary policy committee that sits at the back and decides what's meant to be best. And really what they're doing is they're hemorrhaging a lot of value in this country.
Yes.
I'm not sure how much of it is intentional and how much of it is ignorance. And by ignorance, I mean you get guys like him, brilliant, educated, experienced. He'll tell you, we've looked at the numbers, we've crunched, this is what's best. And you may find that it's actually coming from other forces globally, this type of thing, that this is what needs to happen. And one of the things I've said about Africa in particular is it does not serve the rest of the world for us to understand our value.
No, it doesn't.
It is one of the worst things that could ever happen. If Africans, by Africans, I'm not speaking black people, I'm speaking all people who find Africa as to be their home. If we actually knew the value of what we have, natural resources, skills. So we'll use a hard commodity example and a soft skill. Hard commodity gold, oil. If we were to price it
Platinum
at an international rate, when we dig it out, not how much they sell it for, gold is now trading at, no. If we were like to dig this thing out, we're not going to let you exploit us and our children and whoever. And we sold it at fair value. We would become wealthier than the Middle East. Africa would be, because we're wealthy in that sense.
Yes.
Then the soft skills are pretty straightforward. You get a chartered accountant, doctor, lawyer in South Africa who leaves and goes to New York, leaves and goes to London, and immediately the money they earn, same skill. It's not like they acquired a weird skill in the flight going there. But you realize, but you're earning this much, they're doing the exact same work as here, which means we are underpricing because of the currency and just because of the value of things. So I'm really not happy. And not only is it the interest rate hikes, but I have people close to me that have been complaining about how VBS was treated, the Vendor Building Society, which we can call it corruption, we can link the EFF, it's okay. But we have to be fair. We'd like to be fair. Ramaphosa has been treated differently to the way Zuma's been treated on similar, if not worse, corruption cases. You look at VBS, you look at African Bank. African Bank had reckless lending. It was meant to shut down, but it was saved. And it's like, if this institution can serve the people, forget who's there, get rid of those clowns, they corrupt, whatever. But if this is serving certain people and allowing them to bank, to invest, to fund their businesses, look into how to save this thing and do it a different way. And I know there are insurance companies, there are certain maybe financial institutions that the Reserve Bank, Ukhanyak, was really not doing well for, and he's probably just sent by other people. And it may not be him, and maybe I'm just incorrect to call him out. I wanted to ask, with this little bit of car knowledge that you may have, any thoughts on We Buy Cars listing? There's a guy on Twitter that I follow. He does amazing, very detailed research on listed companies. He gets into the soft stuff of the founders, and you may not know that this company did this, and his name is Mano Madima on Twitter. He posted a tweet on the 18th of March. We Buy Cars does some crazy numbers. During February 2024, We Buy Cars purchased 14,354 vehicles and sold 13,132 vehicles in just 29 days. The revenue for February was 1.8 billion rand. Inventory levels stood at 2.1 billion due to increased purchasing activity. I was going to link this We Buy Cars to what you are saying, and I'm like, but why don't you become like the We Buy Cars of marketing for media and get Naspers to invest in you and the PIC? But anyways, I wanted to ask any thoughts that you may have on We Buy Cars listing, what it may do for the industry, because I know those guys have tried to monopolize your industry.
To unpack We Buy Cars, we have to start by saying Uncle Fon and Dirk and John.
Fon
and Dirk and John.
The boys
have built an absolutely amazing business.
It's a monster.
Okay. I've had countless interactions with Uncle Fon from the days I was actually present on the day at N1 Gateway when they did 100 cars in 1 month. It was a big celebration, 100 cars. Me and my dad used to go there in the morning and buy cars at 5:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So I've been part of the journey for many, many years.
You did this in the morning to get good stock.
Good stock. And
okay.
At that stage, I mean, you're throwing out crazy numbers, national numbers of 14,000 bought vehicles. At that stage, they were buying 4, 6, 8, 10 type of cars, and we'll go and pick out the cars that were suitable for us. Sure. Everybody that's very competitive is normally hated. In our industry, they are not loved by the rest of the industry. But they demand and deserve respect.
Sure.
Because they've built a big business, a very big business. You cannot discount the fact that I know for a fact that Uncle Fon works until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, till today. He's dedicated his entire life to this company. The results are there. He is very good at what he does. Very, very good. At one or other stage, they decided to sell a part of the company, and it was initially to Fletch Capital.
Okay.
So whatever the percentages were, they introduced a lot of new technology. They introduced a lot of new minds into the company, and they scaled. Obviously, the network grew. Network is net worth. The network grew, and it became a national business. We were there with their first Durban warehouse opening, Cape Town, etc. From there, the business exploded even further.
I see Fletch Capital still has a stake. Sure.
Yeah.
Please carry on.
So, hard work, a lot of hard work has been put into that company. Now, hard work was recognized, and they were willing to sell off a part of the company to grow it and scale it, because it was a built to sell business from the beginning. I don't think Initially it was, but at one or other stage it changed. And it scaled to this point. Them listing and monopolizing the business, this is where the heat will come from the industry onto them. You know, they're killing dealers. They are ruining lives. They are putting people out of work. To a degree, as much as that is correct, I feel that the dealerships that never evolved and never started trading in a different way, never became better at their craft, and tried to become undeniably good in the market, will close and should close.
They deserve to be washed out.
I really do. I really do. And the reason for that is you can't expect that whatever you've done 5 years ago will work today. Maybe 5 days ago, but not 5 years ago. And if you haven't reinvented yourself and your company and re-looked at whatever worked, why it worked, and why it doesn't work today, then you should go out of business.
Sure.
Putting that aside, will they monopolize the industry? Straight up answer is no, they can't. There's a lot of forces within our industry that will fight that. Money is not enough. They can, after they list, they can raise from whoever, from the Ruperts, they can raise money anyway. Money is not enough. If you look at the business structure, and I'm not going to bat their business, they've built up, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of their business. If you look at the business structure, in the middle of everything lies a very important factor that everybody's missing. Well, a lot of my colleagues, our colleagues are missing, and that's the customer. At scale, at that scale, the attention to detail and the attention to quality and attending to the customer is not the same as everybody else's.
Yeah.
Because whether you're doing 200 cars, 50 cars, 30 cars, 14,000 cars, the amount of attention you can give a customer and the amount of attention you can give the product before you give it to the customer is where the competitive advantage for us comes in.
Sure.
Can we compete on a national level? The answer is yes. Even though we don't have warehouses in Cape Town, it makes it more difficult, but it's not impossible. The power of this thing allows us to compete against the Cape Town branch if we know what we're doing and we become really, really good at it. Now, reputation is where I feel a lot of dealerships can leverage against them, because at those numbers, and again, not batting their business, at those numbers, the reputation is very hard to maintain, because it's literally, the business model is you buy the vehicle as it is, you wash the vehicle, you present the vehicle to a consumer, and you sell the vehicle. Now, if you're a bargain hunter, for example, and you want to save 20 or 30,000 Rand or 40 or 15, whatever the number is, from buying a vehicle from them that hasn't been reconditioned, rather than buying one from, let's say, Mercedes-Benz, 2 C-classes, you need to, and people don't, but you need to consciously wake up and realize the quality of this car versus the quality of this car cannot be the same, because not the same amount of care has gone into preparing this vehicle for me and my family.
Yeah.
And if you're purely buying on price, then that's where you should go. But if you care about the quality and the after sales and the way a vehicle is prepared before you get the vehicle, then you should maybe consider this. But this comes at a cost.
Yeah.
It's 20 or 30,000 Rand more. So monopolizing the industry becomes impossible because of the amount of detail they put into the vehicle at those numbers, number one. And number two, not everybody is a bargain hunter. Sometimes people will say, okay, I get the backup service from XYZ dealer that I'm not going to get here at a cost of 25,000 Rand. I'm willing to pay whatever the number is, 300 Rand or 200 Rand more on my installment, but I know I have peace of mind that if anything goes wrong, I can call someone. It's not a call center, and there can be a proper discussion and an outcome. So what will it do to the industry in terms of their list? Will they be able to raise more funds? Yes. Will they be able to open more warehouses? Yes. Will they be able to get to the number 25,000 cars that they predict? My honest opinion, for their sakes, I hope they do. I hope they do. More power to Uncle Fon and the boys and the team. But it becomes really, really difficult because with numbers, that also becomes your enemy.
Yeah.
If you have very good customers in terms of they've been treated well, they've experienced great service, there was problems, it was taken care of, that over time becomes valuable, and vice versa happens. So depending on the model and the price range, also remember the price range that they play in, majority of their vehicles are under 150 and majority of their vehicles have high mileages. So high mileages and low prices automatically says to you the cars will have problems. And that becomes the very, very heavy wind that they have to fly into to maintain and increase momentum. It's very difficult. I've tried it. At one or other stage, we tried to become a retail wholesale business for a minute, and hence the gray hairs. I said, no, I can't for the life of me give a product over to a customer that I wouldn't be able to give to my mom. I want every car that goes out to be in the condition that I would give it to my mom. That's my rule. And we stopped wholesaling cars.
You're making me think of something I've never considered before. So after you buy a car from a dealership, if there are any problems, you take it back immediately.
That's the leverage of reputation.
Sure.
And again, these are some of the conversations that we'd love to have with the dealer network, where it's a decision. If you put profits first, there's an advantage. Absolutely, there's an advantage. But if you put the consumer first and you think of this game as an infinite game, and I would love to do this until the day I die. I know that the team would also love to do this until the day they die. If you consider you're playing an infinite game, then profit should be second. The customer should be first. And some customers are not always right because you get bullies. And our rule is we don't bully, but we never get bullied. So sometimes you have to put your foot down and say, no, I'm not going to do this.
Sure.
And if your foundation of values and principles aligns with that decision, then we can go to war.
Yeah.
But if you put the customer first and there's a middle ground, long term, I feel that dealerships, independent dealers, win over big corporations and corporate companies that drive numbers. There's many case studies. There's many in America. You have similar companies that have reduced in value 90%. Lots of case studies. I'm not saying they will, and I hope they don't. But will they be able to monopolize our industry and go to 25, 30,000? Realistically, a monopoly is over 50%, right? There's 50, 60%.
Let's say over 50%. Yeah.
Over 50. There's 100,000 transactions happening in South Africa monthly. If they get to 25,000, they're slowly creeping into the monopoly status.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's impossible because they've done a lot of things that I thought were impossible, but it's very unlikely.
I've never thought of the idea. So you take a car from a dealership, after you leave and there's problems, you go back. I never think that over the years while you have the car, every time you have a problem, you go back to the dealership.
Within reason.
So what you made me think of is not to go back to the dealership and say you sold me rubbish. It's to go back and say you sold me this car. I'd like you to help me fix it. You are a dealership. This is where I bought this thing. This is where the baby was born, etc. So I'm looking for a pediatrician or a doctor that, if not you guys, because I'm not asking you guys to be responsible for anything. You are a dealership. This is where I bought the car. Refer me to a mechanic. Can I come and drop the car off here? And that becomes a value add that could also be a money spinner for dealerships to say, you can go and find your own mechanic, but at any given time in any of the years you need help, you can always come back to us. If we can't fix it at a price, it's not going to be for free unless you've got some arrangement. We'll refer you to a mechanic. You can always trust that this product we gave you you can always bring it back here and we'll have a look at it. You made me think of that. I've never thought of that before.
It's again putting the customer or profitability first.
Yeah.
If you can build a relationship with the dealer that you are interacting with, a real relationship, not thank you on the Facebook photo, thank you for shopping with us, a real relationship, then that person is your go-to person. If the car breaks, you don't call a call center. You call the salesperson or the manager of that dealership. That's very different to a corporate company where it's numbers. If this, then this.
Yeah.
If this,
and
then
there's a
this.
script.
And there's a script.
Yeah.
If the vehicle breaks and it's over and above what legally is the responsible length of time for the dealership to have some sort of ownership of that problem, then send them there. Unemotionally, send them there, because that's what the law says.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, the law says that. I'm sending you there. Where, and again, that's the advantage the smaller dealers and the dealer network has over the big corporations.
If they use it.
If they use it. Absolutely.
I'm also quite emotional about the example you're using, the big corporations versus, we call them mom and pop stores.
Yes.
And I envision a South Africa, if ever this conversation was going to get to politics, I do envision a future South Africa where we do go back to that community thing. And even if it's a We Buy Cars or a Wheelie, of which I wonder if those guys are involved, I have a feeling they are in some way, whether it's consultants, etc.
In which way? Because I know both companies really well.
Well, I'll chat about it now.
Okay.
I hope even if these big corporations operate in communities, they are willing to listen to the communities. So you have a We Buy Cars in Pretoria North, and they're this big, huge company, and you're like, but even in Pretoria North, I think this is where Spar, by the way, has won as a retail store, because we speak about ShopRite, we speak about Pick and Pay, we'll speak about Woolies. But we don't speak much about Spar. Spar has got something unique in that they're big on franchise
But that's
ownership.
a franchise business. That's the difference.
So I'm saying this is the thing, because it's still a big corporation, right?
Yes.
But they have franchise owners.
Owner-operated franchise business.
So you have someone in a community that people know that runs this thing, number one. So people know, my kids studied with your kids. We went to school together. And they also give them some leeway in terms of sourcing from local, which also brings in that community element, which becomes important. So I'm hoping those things will be there. Looking at the way Wheelie has grown, so I wanted to add We Buy Cars, Fledge Capital, you mentioned. I think at some point there was a stake bought by Naspers, and then I think they sold.
That was blocked. So the reason it was blocked was because Naspers owns AutoTrader, and the reason why it was blocked was because the dealer network thought, and the Competition Commission thought, that if you own the acquisition and the distribution of an industry, you monopolize it.
Sure.
So We Buy Cars, the source where all the stock gets bought up, AutoTrader, that's where all the stock gets sold.
Sure.
Then it sort
of conflicts of interest.
Yeah,
well,
closes
not
the
a
circle.
conflict of interest, but you.
And that's why it was blocked.
Okay.
There was massive court cases.
And then SA Taxi bought them, and now they're listing. And you're speaking about even devaluation. I remember the days of the billboards with Fawn and Dirk on them, by the way, on the highways.
Yes.
So there's big corporations, there's losing the customer, then there's chasing money, and then having shareholders and having pension funds put their money there. Do you think it's a good idea to list something like We Buy Cars? Do you think it's going to do well? And is the only reason why you're hoping they succeed because of your personal relationship? If you didn't know Fawn and Dirk, would you be like, look, for our industry, I don't think it's a good thing. I think we still need, but it's because you actually know them. So you're considering people that you know personally in what they've built.
I appreciate the amount of work that was put into that company.
That you are aware of personally.
Yes, the amount of work.
That another person wouldn't know.
And also, having been in the industry all my life, I know the headwinds that our industry has faced especially over the last 2 years. It's been a rough ride. And for that company to persevere through all those headwinds and all the hate and all the other factors that came in, SA Taxi buying them. Boom, shares dropped 93% at one stage, 92%. And them having this company that they've worked their entire lives for, devaluate this way, and being able to traction out of that and listing. Look, have they closed dealerships? Many.
Yeah.
Many. The dealerships that closed, could they have done things differently? Yes. The reason why they grew was because the dealer network didn't evolve fast enough. The reason why they actually grew from the beginning was you had a book, M&M book, Medium Agrada, that's what it's called. And a customer walks in and said, how much is my car worth? And then you look in the book and you say, the trade is 50. I can sell it for 60, but you've got some scratches here. We'll offer you 40. And the dealers started stealing the customer's cars. And you didn't really have a different option, like 50, 40, whatever. I can't get more. Otherwise, I have to meet somebody that's maybe dodgy,
sort of
at
shady
at
somewhere.
a petrol station, just after dark. No, I would rather take the hiding of $5,000, and here comes We Buy Cars, and there's We Buy Cars with the money. Then you go to them and you say to them, but the dealer offered me 45. Sure, I'll give you 50. Boom, pay. And then it was like literally in the beginning, handed on a silver platter in a way that consumers went to them. They had a written offer and it was easy to beat. This, however, is reversed now. So consumers are coming to us and saying, We Buy Cars offered me 350 on this T-Cross. I'm like, really? We'll pay you 355. Okay, thank you very much. Take a seat and do the transaction. So, but I mean, that happens with scale. And because the dealer network was fast asleep to catch onto this and adjust and adapt, they grew. And some closed.
Do you think the company's going to do well? As a listed company? With shareholders and over-regulation and now properly chasing profits? Because now it's like we built these things like we don't care. We've got shareholders. We've got a board of directors and we need to cut and we need to scale and push volume.
I'm going to divide that answer into two. With the company being listed now, they've got an excellent management team. They've got accountants and data analysts and that can do predictive analytics that have their finger on the pulse like this on the market. Okay. That's the good part.
Okay.
The bad part is now that we're chasing numbers and profits even more, what happens to the most important thing in this whole equation, which is the consumer? What happens? How does the consumer get treated? And depending on what their direction is here, determines the outcome, whether they're successful as a listed company or not.
I remember Yanni Mouton speaking about how they built Capitec after reading Banker for the Poor by Mohammed Yunus, who built $1 billion company, giving money to essentially stockfels of women in Bangladesh who make things and sell them, hawkers. Little groups gave them money. If they're doing well and they pay back because they hold each other accountable, you give them more and they grow. Beautiful model that I think South Africa needs to use to build future banks and credit or financial institutions, financial institutions. He speaks about how when they built Capitec, they went around eating all the payday loans to build Capitec. So that's eating. We Buy Cars, I don't know if they'd consider eating you guys or if they may look to a point where they end up partnering. Do you think that might happen at some point? That, look, you're a dealership, struggling a bit, we'll become your support. But we're going to take a stake or we'll do the back end or we'll do some training. But you can keep your brand. It's just you'll be you'll have Mid-Mac Motors supported by We Buy Cars. Do you think there might be something like that in the future?
They are trying a version of a floor plan where they give some dealers credit.
Okay.
They are trying that. But I think the real companies that are in danger here are the auto traders and the cars.co.za's. And those companies, those go-to platforms, simply because of the amount of traffic that they generate to their site. They generate massive amounts of traffic.
Yeah.
So eventually, they also start competing at bottom of the funnel. I'm ready to buy a car now. Let me go visit We Buy Cars and see, because their stock holding is 12,000. 12,000 cars is a lot of cars. It's a lot of cost. So I think they are the way I see things. And if I was a fly in the room when these things are discussed, that would be my next move, is to start competing against companies that actually list cars for dealers.
Are you going to buy shares in We Buy Cars after the list?
No.
Why not?
Again, beautiful business. Love the hustle. Congrats, hats off. They've built a monster.
Yeah.
It's against my beliefs of what I want to do in the industry. I don't want to do that. I want to put the customer first. I want to give the consumer the best possible product at a competitive price. It will never be at the best price. We can't compete on price, but we also can't compete on quality. That's where I want to have the leverage. And for that reason, I won't be an investor there, because I don't believe in the outcome. I believe in the business. They're running
outside of
business.
the IPO. Do you think the people that buy shares are gonna make money? Be honest now. Outside of Wimfan and Dirk, we respect what they've done. Now, for people that are listening to you as an expert in the car industry, and with this listing, do you think they're going to make money? And please be honest. I need you putting consumers first.
No problem. Whether they're going to make money or not is...
don't give us diplomatic answers.
No, it's not a diplomatic
Okay.
answer. Will they continue pushing and driving numbers, pushing and driving revenue? Because if they do, I think it accelerates the share price.
Sure.
But then it eventually, whether it's... this answer is based off of historical case studies that I've done on companies that do exactly the same thing at a bigger scale in America.
Sure.
It goes up and then it goes down. And the reason why it goes down is because the consumer's interpretation of what they do accelerates with those numbers.
So buy in the short term, but don't expect it to sustain for a very long term. Because of the nature of the industry.
And if you're going to go out there and publicly state, we're going to go to 25,000 cars, and they're currently on 14,000. Like I said, it's not only money that gets you to 25,000 cars, because they've got money. They've had money for a very long time. And it's not only warehouses. There's lots of headwind from the industry and from the consumer market that make it difficult to grow that big. So I feel it might go up a little bit after IPO. Whether it stays up or not will be how they treat customers.
Outside of We Buy Cars, man, we have to send our sympathies and condolences to the family of Markus Jooste.
Yes.
A very polarizing figure in the world because of what happened with Steinhoff, founded by Bruno Steinhoff. And I have to say, outside of this, I still don't believe that Bruno Steinhoff and Christo Wiese, who was a big shareholder, I don't believe that they were not fully aware of everything that was happening. But that's a conversation for another day. Just sympathies and condolences. I happened to be in Hermanus last week in the Western Cape for a BizNews conference hosted by Alec Hogg, the founder of BizNews. And it was there I found out that Markus Jooste actually lives in the town. A beautiful, beautiful town in the Western Cape. So happened that Christo Wiese also came to speak at the conference and he was asked about Steinhoff. And then as the Hawks come and say, or as the FCSA comes and says, Markus Jooste is going to have to pay 475 million rand in a penalty. And he's agreed to hand himself over to the Hawks. Apparently he was taking a walk, decided to end his life. Said it's suicide. A lot of people on social media, because of Thabo Bester, the story of Gavin Watson with Bosasta, they don't believe. They're like, nah, we want to see the body, etc. But the human element is always going to be important for those of us who understand. Markus Jooste is a polarizing figure because of what happened, but we must remember that he created a lot of wealth for a lot of people. He donated to a lot of institutions. I'm not sure if he's an Afis old boy, stand to be corrected.
Sure.
But he donated to the schools he went to, created a lot of employment for a lot of people that got to feed their families. And outside of him, there are human beings around him that cared about him and the work he did. And I can imagine how sad they are that this had to happen, you know. Whether it's an inability to handle pressure, whether he was in depression, whether he thought this was the easy way out. It's a tragic story. So I just wanted to say, because I also made a reference to Hermanus earlier, may he rest in peace.
What do you think it was? Was it the inability to handle pressure? Because I've got questions around that. What about, and I'm sympathetic to what happened. And it's 100% a tragedy, because it depends on what side of the fence you stand. If your pension fund was diminished, what about the tragedy that you've experienced throughout this process? But what do you think it was? Was it the inability to handle pressure? Was it the fear of going to jail? Was it I'm sure it's not the reputation, because I mean, his reputation has been dragged through the mud since 2011?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's been long. So yes, he's from Affies, Afrikaanse Seuns Hoërskool in Pretoria, an amazing school. At some point, he donated 10 million rand to the school, but he donated to many other initiatives.
Do you think it was a suicide, or do you think they took him out? What do you think?
It's difficult for me to say. It's really difficult. I mean, the news is still fresh as we're recording this. There are a lot of people that are upset with him, and it's not just him. There were a couple of other people that were implicated. There were people upset with how our government handled the situation, of which they don't give other people such soft treatment in a situation like this. I think Steinhoff lost over 200 billion rand in value.
Insane.
I think it was the Germans or Germany that decided to actually issue warrants of arrest, and that actually went deeper than our country did. And at some point, even with the investigation, our institutions said they didn't have money. And and I think it was Steinhoff that donated 40 million or something to the institutions to investigate them, which is like, this is ridiculous.
But that's...
So...
Yeah, that's compromised on a whole new level.
So there's that. Then there's the conversation of the audit firms, of which the audit firms have come up with the issues in Zimbabwe and potential gold smuggling. Your KPMGs, your Deloittes, not just here, but around the world, have been found so much misconduct, conflicts of interest, being friends with some of the companies they meant to audit. Some of them are friendly because they're hoping to get a job once they leave, whether it's articles or serving at an audit firm. If you look at The Big Short with Stephen Carell, the incestuous relationship between audit firms, companies, and rating agencies and companies.
Good movie.
You look at load shedding, you look at Cyril Ramaphosa's tenure and how the ratings agencies have been silent. But then you look at the wasted years of Zuma and how they were so loud, and it's a mess. I now have to try and get into the mindset of Markus. Not cool. For a long time, I believed that after this thing came out, because it also didn't come out voluntarily from Steinhoff or from an audit firm, there are these traders that are out there that look to short companies, whether it's a We Buy Cars, whatever. They're like, look, this is not going to make money. And they do deep dives.
Yes.
And when they do deep dives into data, they do things like ask questions of employees. They befriend, no, my wife works there. Apparently, they've been shredding documents like, nah, there's something shady here. You look at The Big Short. You look at Margin Call, another brilliant movie. You look at Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps. They speak about some of these shady things that happen. This is a conspiracy theory. I think when this thing dropped and that those traders that do these deals leaked that there's something shady here, and then everyone started seeing the spotlight, I think Markus Jooste and the guys probably had like these really private meetings. And they were like, look, there's a chance that this thing is gonna crash, and we need to see what's going to happen. And it's like someone's gonna have to take the hit. And Markus, being the guy he was who built this company, from Bruno Steinhoff, was like, I'll take it. If this was a ShopRite story, it would have been Whitey Passon saying, look, I'll take the hit. It's my company. And I think he took a hit on behalf of the guys. I think Jacob Zuma took a hit for the ANC with all the corruption at some point, and they keep quiet. Markus Jooste was not there saying, hey, listen, I need to explain what happened. And it wasn't just me. Kept quiet, kept to himself. And I think it's also why he's been allowed to carry on living comfortably as he has. He got to choose when to go and present to Parliament. He wasn't forced, he chose. Now, what happens from there, where I think they had a meeting and he said, I'll be the fall guy. Him, I think, and the CFO, to what happened now.
CFO has done some sort of a plea bargain deal, or that's what I picked up.
Sure. We live in a world run by mafias. And some of our favorite people we really love, are involved in really dark things. It could be a president of a country. It could be a chairman or CEO of one of your favorite brands, the brands that kids love the most. And when you actually figure out some of the things these people do to attain the type of power they have, they become different types of creatures in the world, where they'll kiss their children, love them, stress, my daughter's having a matric farewell, but be fully aware of child labor practices in the mining companies that they have shares in. They're aware of the atrocities, but they don't see those people as human, and it's because they've become certain types of creatures. There's a chance that he could have been taken out. There's a chance that he was advised to take himself out. In an ordinary course of life, for an ordinary human being who doesn't understand these things, building a multi-billion rand, if not dollar company that has global reach would be something really, really personal to you and very big. Like, my family literally believes I'm the greatest thing to ever happen. The pressure, when you come from a black home, the black tax, the number of jobs, you're a hero at Affies and all these things. You're an Afrikaans hero. They speak about Stellenbosch Mafia. You're like, don't tell me about Stellenbosch. I'm from Pretoria, boy. We've also built big companies. You're a big deal. Huge deal. When this thing crashes, whether it had to do with your own misdoings or accidental, part of it could have been literally, look, the company is not doing well and there are so many people whose lives are at stake, jobs, shareholders. So I'll do some of it. It's not just about me and being rich and owning horses. That's nice, but this is bigger than me. How many horses can I ride? How many cars can I drive? There are human beings. There are shareholders. The PIC is invested in us. There are pension. There are black mothers who are nurses who have swollen ankles, who are hoping that their value when they retire is worth something. And I can't go out there and be like, actually, Steinhoff is not worth what it's worth, because that old goko somewhere who's got kids that go to school needs the share value to be worth something. So they could have been that. And when this thing crashes, your mind is meant to crash for a normal human being. You're meant to be really, really depressed and in a dark place. And you walk and you talk and you laugh, but you're not there anymore.
So that's the question, I suppose. Let's say it's from 2011. So he was. This is how I see it. I've gone through the last few months, extreme up and downs, like extreme for me. And that pressure, you as an entrepreneur, you struggle to sleep. You wake up early, scratching your head. Sometimes you spend hours just gazing, like thinking, processing. If this, then this. If this, then this. If this, then this. Do you think that from 2011, because that's 13 years ago, sort of normalized in his mind that I'm going to go through this process, and once being handed over as judgment, you have to pay back 475 million and hand yourself in. He was supposed to hand himself into the Hawks today. Once that judgment was made, does he then process this as, okay, I've had 17 people in my ear. We'll do this. We'll protect you here. These are the 3 available moves. He's got lawyers backing him and giving him the next 3-4 moves, the next 1 move. We backed in the corner, but we can go left or right. Does that judgment then make it real for him? I'm just putting myself in his shoes. And the moment that, oh shit, I have to pay this money and I'm going to jail, that reality was perhaps too much, that I can't handle maybe the reputational knock or the physical being in a jail cell or having to pay back this money that maybe he has, maybe he doesn't. We all speculate because we weren't there. Do you think that pushed him over the edge, or is there different factors that come into play?
You know, he was given a chance because it took a while before they froze his assets and stuff. So when people are like, oh, they bought him time to move things offshore and
Yes.
put it in people's names. I'll tell a personal story. I founded a business called the National Savings Club, the NSC, many years ago. The idea was to collect people's money like a stokvel and to create something of an investment company. To invest in specifically small businesses that need the funding, that are hopefully going to grow at some point. Let's say when Fawn and Dirk, when they starting with buy cars, I'm like, I believe in you. I have a little bit of money to buy maybe 10 cars and start this thing off. I invested in a food business. I invested in a clothing business. I used to give loans to entrepreneurs. I did microloans to random people. There are so many entrepreneurs I met during that time. My vision was noble. My heart and my head were in a good place. I wanted to build a black old mutual. In years to come, it would be a R1 billion, trillion rand investment fund. And people tell the story of this little black boy who started this little national savings club. I had a little bit of success, very small relatively, but very big for me at the time. I was in my mid to late 20s. I was loaning out, I think, over 200,000 rand a month or something, maybe 100,000, I'm not sure. I had invested in cattle farming. I'd invested in pigs, pig farming. I had all these other small businesses. I was loaning out money to people that were doing work. You know, a entrepreneur gets to, process their order, execute on their order because of money I've given them, and then I was doing it on good faith because you believe people are good. And unfortunately, you learn the hard way that you have to build systems. And people are not paying back because I wasn't holding security. You start a business, I give you 50,000, you're getting stock, etc. And then you're like, Pen, look, I'm not making money. I'm seeing you live your life. I'm seeing you. And I'm not angry because I understand running a business. The fact that your kids are at school, the fact that you went to drink somewhere, it's not because you're swearing at me. It's because maybe you're stressed and you just want to let loose. But it's that humanity, unfortunately, that allowed people to owe me a lot of money. And when people owe you money in the business I was in, you have shortfalls every month, because now you have to play catch up and more people are not paying you. And eventually the business collapsed. Sold the cows, sold the pigs, tried to focus on loans. People are not paying back. And I owed, I think it was over 100 investors at the time. Something as small as 100 rand. The biggest investor I had was a single investor of, I think, 200 and something thousand. There were others at 20,000, 10,000, and then a lot of them were like 1,000, 2,000, whatever. Number one, the number of months, maybe a year or two that it took for me to eventually own up that I'm failing. Because at the time, I don't know. No one has trained me on how to manage a failing business in terms of communicating with your investors. I'm like, well, something will hit. I'm going to find something. There'll be a turnaround. So for a while, you're lying. And there's other people that want to invest and you're taking that money because you're like, no, man, we're going to get out of this darkness. But it's not looking well. But you also not think it's going to crash. And at the time, I wasn't living a good life. I wasn't driving a nice car. So you can't say I was living the top life, of which some entrepreneurs, based on the business and the network they have to maintain that.
Agree.
You still have to sponsor this school team. You still have to host these parties. You still to keep up appearance because of the network. I wasn't in that and I wasn't running that type of, so I didn't need to, luckily. Then you start the communication and the backlash from the majority of people. You scammed us. You're lying. It's not nice for a good guy trying to do the right thing. And when you're investing in businesses and you're going to check out on the cows in Cullinan and Newcastle and the pigs in the vault, like, there's emotional investment in that. You're speaking to managers, you're asking someone what happened here, but this business, can I maybe help you turn around this thing? What if you get stock from here? Let's go and see if we can source in China. You're literally also emotionally invested in the people the people that owe you. You're trying to call them, you're being nice. Some of them, they're like, I'm not going to pay you. Now you're starting to swear. You're also pissed off. You pay me back my money. It's a lot. And now these people are saying, you're scamming me. You're a liar. I had people that I went to school with telling me, I always knew you were shady. And I'm glad I'm finally seeing it. And that'll break your heart as just an ordinary guy where you're like, but Bobby, like, I used to come to your mom's house, bro. you've slept at my home. It's not, when you're listening to like a Christo Visa and a Bruno Steinhoff speak about this Markus Jooste guy, as if they don't know his kids, as if we haven't talked shit together and maybe even done dodgy things together. Hey, can you ask them to sign this? We're at that level. So that really hurt, because now it's no longer about money.
Yeah.
Now it's about me as the person. You're telling me you've never really believed in me.
You're climbing in your character now.
Which almost means even when you gave me money, it wasn't because you believed in me. It's because you were looking to make a buck. So you've actually never really seen me. Or maybe you're just angry, because I have to think about that as well. Maybe he's just angry.
Yeah.
I got a couple of death threats. I remember 3 phone calls, specifically one where this lady called me and I listened, because one of the things I was aware of at the time is don't hide.
Yeah.
Don't hide. Be visible. Take the hits.
Yeah.
Tell people if you want to open a legal case, please do it.
Yeah.
So you guys can see I have nothing.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll also give you some kind of closure. Because maybe if I hide, you might be like, this guy is actually really shady. I'm like, guys, I'm here.
I'm not going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere. I picked up her call and she cried for 30 minutes. The money I gave you was for my children, for their education. And I really believed in you. And I'm like, I can promise you I did my best. She's like, it's not good enough. Where am I going to get this money again? I'm like, I don't know what to say to you, but I'm really trying. She's like, try harder. If you have to beat people up, if you have to steal something, please do it. This is my children's money. I was broken, obviously, after that phone call. And I have to appreciate in retrospect what that has done to thicken my skin today.
Yes.
Which, this is where you start becoming a certain type of animal over time. Now, the stories you hear, I went to go and speak to 2 of my mentors at the time. I told them how much I owed people. It was about R1 million. The bigger scheme of things, it's nothing. They laughed at me. They were like, tell us when you owe people 10 million perspective. And I told them, but the people, they're like, look, just communicate with them. Tell them if there's anything you can salvage. This is how it's normally done. I'm like, but that's for institutions. I was building this thing on my personal reputation. And now at the time, there are stories of Forex traders. I wasn't trading Forex. So at some point they asked, were you trading Forex? No. There were people that had been killed because they took money from the wrong people. So you take money from people in the taxi industry, tenderpreneurs, politicians, or maybe mafia guys, drug dealers. They're like, hey, we like this thing you're doing. Hey, you're a nice guy. Come to my house.
Here's 50,000.
Here's money for you. But now you owe the wrong person 50,000. And this person is like, oh, we saw what happened in the news, 475 million. Look, we don't want the money anymore. Fuck you. We've got our guys inside prison. You're going to prison. Watch what's going to happen to you. Good luck. So you're like, you know
It's
what?
a different type of pressure.
Outside of the depression, outside of the money, outside of everything, I lost money. I lost the money. And you look at Markus Jooste, because he lost money for, let's say, everyone. In some way or another. Many of us, our family members, had either money at the PIC, or we had shares in Steinhoff, or a linked company, or something.
There's either a direct connection or a connection to a connection.
Someone that wanted to come and buy a car at Midmac, who's a Steinhoff employee or who's a supplier, something. All lost money in some way. And there are certain people that are just like, my mother's pension went down because of what you did. Maybe she lost 100,000. It's not a lot of money. And it's just those guys that are like, we're waiting for you. I've told our guys in prison where you're going, that you're coming. Don't you worry, boy. And you're like, of all the money that I lost, because you can imagine the reception Markus Jooste was getting in public. The death threats. Now it's like, oh, you're finally going to prison. We've been fucking waiting. Ons wag vir jou, papa. And you're like, you know what? I don't mind the money. I don't mind the hate mail. I don't mind the death threats. I don't mind being crucified. And maybe I'm even taking a hit for other guys who get to live their lives. They carry on investing and they get to speak at platforms. And no one says, but you are also involved there. I'll take that. It's like, for what's about to come in my life right now and where I'm going, I'd rather just end this now. Maybe I'm not even depressed. Maybe I'm actually strong and thick-skinned, but I don't want to go to a place where I've been threatened with gang rape, torture. I don't want to go through that. I've said my goodbyes to my family. I've done what I can. I've protected who I could. I'll be the fall guy. Let's actually end this thing now. And you end it. People will never understand some of these things. And when employees and investors are screaming at a business owner, at an entrepreneur that built something from nothing, that created jobs and gave hope and donated, and they invest some money and they lose some money, or you have to retrench, which is also very difficult. These big business people, Bobby and them, he's comfortable. He drives his nice BM, and you're like, you almost want to tell people, go yourself, man. You go build what I built and have half the good heart that I still have. You'll never understand. If you could do it, or if everyone could do it, they'd do it if it was that easy. You don't know what I go through. You don't know that even the money that I have, as much as it could be a lot of money, the value that I have created, you'll never understand. And I don't even, if you knew how much I could spend, but you'll never get it. And I guess entrepreneurship and building something and even taking the hits, because there's hits. Jacob Zuma's a prime example. The hits he's taken, and he can still stand in a room now and laugh with, white people, and they're like, are you going to kill us one day? And he laughs and he sings. You're like, there's a certain callus. David Goggins speaks about the callus. The callus is this thick skin, this hard skin you get from lifting weights or gardening or whatever. There's a certain callus you have to build around your brain, your mind, where I think the guys that are in commodities trading, the Glencores and the Trafiguras, are probably have that, where there was a bomb somewhere, 2,000 people died, there were bribes, but you realize families are going to lose homes. You're like, but the net effect on society, is it for the greater good? Pull the trigger. And you're like, you're heartless. You're like, I know, but if I don't do it, someone else will, and I'm trying to salvage something. The next guy is going to steamroll everything. So I'll take the hit. And you're like, that can't be a place to live. That guy wakes up tomorrow morning and he takes his daughter for a walk. It's like, no, you guys didn't give us sprinkles. My daughter loves sprinkles. What the hell, baby? Don't worry. We'll get you. You're like, this person cannot be human. And you're like, I'm something else. I'm not human. I'm something else, but I'm the guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
It's hard. A lot of people say, it would be nice. I'm sure it's nice. And I'm sure it's comfortable. But the pain that has to be endured to build something of value, to build something that's worthwhile, and the pain of losing teammates, recruiting teammates, building bonds, sometimes those don't work out, late nights, stress, borderline depression, borderline
and depression, and maybe getting out if you're lucky,
but borderline feeling not hopeless, feeling out of moves. Sometimes you feel, I've played all my moves. I don't have another move to play.
Yeah.
And then you just go home, you pray about it, you meditate, whatever it is that you do. Tomorrow morning, boom, I've got one more move. And that over time, compacted into calluses, gives you the moral authority to face certain situations, because you've built up the sixth sense. I'm scared of this. Let me approach it cautiously, or I've had this before. I can go steamroll over this problem. It's hard, and over time, do you only realize, okay, I'm ready for these problems now, and that's why I get to face them. But sometimes you're not, and like you said, there's so many variables in what happened yesterday that it's very difficult, very, very difficult to pinpoint exactly what was going on through his mind.
2 moves left. Take your life, or 3 moves. Submit.
Yeah, he had only 3 moves. Yeah.
Accept I don't know if we're saying the same 3. Maybe you'll say if you have another one. Accept what's happening. 475 million. Go to jail. Face the music. Deal with that.
How long was the sentence?
I have no idea. I don't know if I don't think they sentenced him. Okay. I think I stand to be corrected. I think they were still going to go through that process.
Okay, so have that very public, drag me through the mud.
Sure, I'll take the hits. That's the one move, which he said he was going to hand himself over. The second move is end it now. Take my life. The third move now becomes a conspiracy.
Yes.
Pretend that you took your life, disappear, get plastic surgery, start a new life.
I don't know if I believe that one.
No, it's okay. But that's why it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
So, anyways, to his loved ones again, because again, people need to understand, and it's one of the, I think, a small skill that I have, which is why I'm very comfortable chilling with potential racists in Orania. I have an ability to remove emotions and deal with certain things practically. And in everything that's going to be discussed about Markus Jooste, people must remember that he helped Bruno Steinhoff build a mammoth of a business that created many jobs. Many kids got to go through school, donated, made many people happy, boosted the value of people's pension funds at some point. And then there was the story, of which if the story never came out, who knows? And it also makes you ask how many other companies are overvalued, as an example. And what's sad about the stock market and the movies that I referenced speak to this. The 200 billion rand lost in value by Steinhoff is similar to like Zimbabwe. Nothing in effect that is tangible disappeared. It is based on a story. And it's one of the things I think Elon Musk has mastered. Elon Musk can buy a stake in your company and make it very valuable. Not necessarily because it's done anything tangible, but because of a story. And it was the story that came out about Steinhoff that made the value in paper be less, 200 billion.
Yeah.
And that's also something to consider as well. How much it was actually worth at some point. And this idea of shareholders fleeing and devaluing it, it's literally just a story. It's not a real thing out there. But he was not completely a horrible person. And maybe even the decisions he made may not necessarily been from a greed perspective. If ever the story comes out, it could have been, I was trying to protect the value of pensioners at the PIC. And you're like, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Kind of situations. But yeah, as far as we know, officially, he's gone now. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of talk moving forward
Yeah.
about this.